Good day, all. Impressive array.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming. And I'm going to now hand you over to founder of the Armageddon Expo and the organiser of this particular conference, symposium, Bill Gerrard.
Hello. Welcome to what is pretty much the biggest Doctor Who event in New Zealand history, and as far as I can tell at the moment, the only real celebration that New Zealand's going to get at the 50th anniversary of the show, beyond the specials that'll air later in the year. As a long-time Doctor Who fan myself, and probably somebody who's been involved in fandom in New Zealand for over 30 years, it's something I'm incredibly happy to be, involved with. To have 4 of the Doctors, and well, technically 5 if you count Nicholas, because he played the Doctor in stage play as well. And together, and the logistics of pulling it off, and it's been a year in the planning. We're incredibly excited to have this, and to have this opportunity to bring to fans, new and old, this event and these amazing actors. We have Colin Baker, who portrayed the 6th Doctor, and
Did you say betrayed the 6th Doctor?
depends on the episode. Sylvester McCoy, the 7th Doctor, Paul McGann, the 8th Doctor, and Nicholas Briggs, who's the voice of the Daleks, the Cybermen, and the Ice Warriors, as well as others, in the current Doctor Who series, as well as, now all of these guests are involved in Big Finish, which is the Doctor Who audios, and Nicholas is the head writer? Executive producer of Big Finish. And while there's a Doctor Who special planned for this year, there's also a Big Finish audio special planned, which has got Tom Baker, Peter Davison, Colin, Sylvester and Paul as well. So there's an audio adventure of the 20th Century Doctors planned for, is that being released November 23rd or?
In November.
In November.
I can't divulge exactly where.
Because I haven't made a decision yet.
I have to make an executive decision at some point.
While the various Doctors have been on TV, they have an era that they've filmed. They've also continued in books and audio adventures, and there's a lot of new stories that you can listen to that feature companions and monsters and Doctors, and as I said, the multi-Doctor story is...
Yes, just go to bigfinish.com.
Yeah. But Big Finish is one of the reasons the Doctor Who is still around.
Yeah.
It kept it going in the times when, between 89 and, 89, there's 96 when we had the movie, but between 96 and 2005, there's 9 years of wilderness, of fandom, and that's...
It was the fans actually that kept it going, really. If it wasn't for them, there would be Doctor Who now. They decided they didn't want it to die, and they asked Colin and I and John Pertwee and Ray and Peter and all that to make videos in their toilets and things like that to keep it going.
Yep.
And it was
Flush with success.
Yes.
Which carried on success. Yeah.
And now they can afford a studio.
Yeah, cool. It's very near a toilet.
Yeah. Thank God, because it gets nervous sometimes working with those monsters, I can tell you.
Do we have any questions?
So, have you all been to New Zealand before? Sorry. So, I know Paul, Sylvester, Colin.
Yes, I've been to New Zealand before. This is about my 3rd or 4th visit, I think.
Yeah.
I've been to Auckland and I've been to Wellington. And I've been invited, I think we've all been to Weta and seen what goes on at Weta, which has been very exciting. And New Zealand's lovely. It's very nice. You're always very friendly. And your roads are so good. There's no potholes. Which we have in England.
Bring you down to
Every
Christchurch.
20 yards, no potholes.
Bring you down to Christchurch.
Yeah, it's
show
one
you
big
potholes
pothole.
you've never seen.
Yeah, well, I've been a few times over the years.
You're in the Hobbit, aren't you?
Am I?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'm actually on a stamp. in New Zealand, which is amazing. Yeah, that which makes me very proud.
Often.
And a coin, I've been put on a coin, so people can toss. Oh, I should say that. Anyway, you know what I mean. Yeah, so it's been great. I love coming to New Zealand. It's great. It's bigger, slightly bigger than Britain. The weather's slightly better than Britain. You know, the food is better. The wine is better. Everything's slightly better, bigger, nicer. Also the same. I rest my case.
Have you been here before?
I have. I was here yesterday.
Time traveller.
This is my first trip to New Zealand. Although my wife lived here some years ago when she worked for the UN.
Ooh, just making note of
My wife worked for Medicine Sans Frontières.
Oh,
No, I'm just making it.
My wife didn't have to work, I looked after her.
this is before I was married. So I look after my wife.
My wife looks after me.
If you all arrived in the same TARDIS, who drove?
The TARDIS,
Yeah.
it drove itself.
That's right, it's
Autopilot.
Yeah.
I was chasing. Subscribe.
Quick question, really. I always feel with Doctor Who, unlike many other characters you might have played on the screen, you can really only rent the character. You can never really own it. Is that the way you feel?
Well, that's a good thing, really. It takes away a huge amount of the responsibility. If you were the only one ever to play a part, it's a massive burden, because it's such a big programme. And the fact that we have all, one after another, played a part, and all done it very differently, means that the programme is bigger than any one of us, and that's the way it should be, really.
Yeah, and what's more, the possibilities seem infinite. Doesn't matter
Yeah.
how many actors eventually after us get to play the part.
Yeah.
It probably will still only scratch the surface. You know, so
Will they get to a lady doctor, do you think?
I get away.
Will they?
Yeah.
How do you feel about
Nice.
that?
What about a baby doctor?
Baby doctor. Oh, we've got one.
Three
And he's
or
only
4-year-old.
12. Matt Smith, he's only 12, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Got a great face, though.
Is Maggie Smith his mum?
Maggie Smith, Maggie's mum. She'd be, no, who do we know? Something else. There must be another actress who can act.
There are loads of them.
Maggie Smith.
There should be a lady. There should be a lady. I mean, if they're all, I mean, the legend is there are 12 generations. I'm sure they'll overcome that obstacle when the necessity arrives and extend it. But it's absurd to think that this personality does not have a feminine side of any kind. So there's got to be a female doctor at some point.
Well, the Doctor has a granddaughter.
That's true.
Yes.
And they've already established in the more recent episodes, haven't they? When the Doctor was referring to a particular Time Lord, he said, oh, he was great, and she was quite good as well. So, you know, the idea that
Yes.
the Time Lord can change sex when they regenerate has now been established
Oh, really?
in the TV show.
Do you, the three of you, look at the current series of Doctor Who and think to yourselves, oh God, I wish I had those special effects and sets when I was doing well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
And the love and the budget.
Uh-huh. Yes.
'Cause
And the wages.
the BBC loves the programme now. Certainly when I was doing it, I think when Sylvester was doing it, it was a tad embarrassed that they were still churning out something that was
25 years old.
25 years old. And look at us now celebrating 50.
Yeah.
And the budget was dire. Now it's loved, and they acknowledge that they've got a good money generator, so therefore they're spending money on it. And the special effects they can do are just extraordinary. I mean, one spaceship when on the screen when I was doing it took up a third of the budget. Now it's two 12-year-olds on a computer. Bang, there's a spaceship.
I think, though, what we had and is missing are the episodes. And we had longer to develop a story. Now I think they've got, it's at 45 minutes, they've got, so there's a lot of wham-bang stuff. And I think that's sad, they're missing that. Although they do sometimes do it.
The cliffhanger, you mean?
Yeah, and 4 weeks, you know, you could actually develop
Yeah.
the story in a much more, you know, with much more depth. Whereas now it's got to be
I
quick.
think audiences have been taught to be impatient now.
Yeah.
They want a resolution while they're watching it. They don't want to wait a week. And I think broadcasters fear audiences going away because they missed an episode. Whereas now you can come into any episode of Doctor Who and that stands up on its own.
Yeah.
But curiously, this TV pilot that I was involved in '96 some of the criticism that we heard, I mean, from people that loved the show, was that it was too glossy. It looked, I mean, it ran counter to what people, well, probably nostalgically used to love about the old show. It creaked a bit, the sets wobbled, that kind of thing. But just in answer to your question, it wasn't always so that people appreciated having money lavished on it. People didn't necessarily want it to look, it sounds like, anyway, too slick.
I would add something. Former executive producer Cara Skinner, who's just recently left, one of the things she said was, I acknowledge that we have a good budget, a good TV budget, but to make the kind of stuff we're trying to make, it's still actually really tight. Given that they're sort of trying to, more and more, they're trying to make something that looks like a movie, a 45-minute movie. So, and having been on set a lot in the new show, I've always sort of smirked to myself as an old Doctor Who fan that, if you do go up to the sets and give them a prod and give them a tap, they're still kind of, it's all for
substantial.
The difference is the way they make it now. Once in your day, they would make it where you would rehearse for a long time and then you'd go into the studio and camera rehearse and then boom, you do it quite quickly. So there was whereas now what happens if a Dalek bumps into another Dalek, they say cut, and they will do it. And I know you did retakes as well, and they will redo stuff endlessly until they're absolutely certain. But there was,
Yes, we didn't have that luxury.
Yeah, so that's what's different. And the lighting as well, lit for individual
Cheap
cameras
shots,
rather than lit for a load of studio cameras where someone's pressing the button to cut to shots upstairs in the gallery. So it's shot like a film. So,
but the expectations are also different, aren't they? Now, not that they're competing with so-called video games, but certainly they're living within the same era and the same sphere, and the expectations of kids now probably is that things have to look impressive, and quite slick, whereas 30, 40 years ago there wasn't that pressure.
I didn't look impressive, it was slick.
No, it was the equivalent to utility furniture, wasn't it?
That was me, yes, I was a piece of utility furniture.
It was post-war TV.
Yes.
Well, Colin and Sylvester, that was the question that I just wanted to ask, is of course you had the army always in your episodes, didn't you? It was like if you needed a whole mass of props, then the army would often be called in, whereas because it was post-war.
Was it the budget?
Unit, you saying unit?
There was always people running around in army jeeps and things like that.
No, not in my time, actually. No, that was mainly
I
John
did it.
Pertwee. You did your
Yeah, Battlefield, there was with
right.
Brigadier.
Yeah.
We had the unit. But no, it was John Pertwee who had mostly all his episodes were with unit.
He was all on Earth.
It was all on Earth and he had them. So, yeah, but no, we only, I was the one that had them just for one story. Most of the time it was just the companion, really.
Yes, that's all I had.
There's so many things that, if you look at the new series now, there's always little bits they throw back to the classic series, but there's stuff that really the groundwork and the core story is still from the 20th century. It's still from the earlier Doctors, and you go, oh, Unit turns up, and anybody who's seen classic Doctor Who will go, oh, Unit, know who they are, done. I mean, there's the Brigadier's daughter is in the show now. She's in the 50th anniversary special, and when she turns up, you sort of know who she is because even though the Brigadier himself hasn't been in the new series, most people who are fans of the show have that full backstory, and then you go. So you can have new characters that come in that are totally new characters, but are standing on the shoulders of 27 years worth of shows.
You probably already know that New Zealand was the first country outside of the UK that screened Doctor Who.
We
discovered that
we found this out this morning.
Yeah, no.
Never knew that before.
2 hours ago.
No.
What do you make of that? I mean, and the fact that it's taken 50 years for some of you to get here.
Well, it's a long way to swim. It's great. I mean, it's terrific. I mean, the thing about coming to New Zealand is it is somehow similar to going home in a way. There's a very great similarity to us on the other side of the world, the furthest away you can get, and yet there's something very close.
This show's been going for 50 years now. Do you ever see a point where the show could actually legitimately finish on a point, or is this just going to be one of those shows that goes on forever and ever and ever, and we may see the 100th anniversary and the 150th anniversary?
Well, I think it's an odyssey, isn't it? Doctor Who, in some senses. It is about a journey, a voyage of discovery with a main character who has insatiable curiosity and can't. And his Achilles heel is his tendency to want to interfere. I think a lot of the time he thinks, oh, I won't get involved, but you should just change that. You know what I mean? He can't help himself.
I mean, it's hard to think it was designed from the outset as something that might run for 50 years.
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
That's all it's about. A science program for children.
But the longer it goes on, obviously, and the longer the mythology builds, the bigger. When we go among the fans and do conventions and things, it's often amazing to hear, people that have no right to know all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's almost PhD level, their knowledge of this kind of 40, 50 years of mythology. But it's strong and it's there and it's getting bigger all the time, so, it's quite possible that 50 years from now, we could all be sitting there, doctors.
And there's a kind of entitlement, isn't there? Because what's happened now is that young parents who watched it when they were young are bringing their children and sharing the time of the parents and the time of the children at events where there are more than 1 or 2 doctors. And that's my doctor and that's my doctor. And once that ball is rolling, it's unlikely to stop because the children of today are going to want to share it with their children. And there will be pressure to keep the programme going. I can easily see Doctor Who on the screens 20 years from now.
Why are the Daleks so evil?
Why are they so evil?
Yes, to a 2-year-old boy. Why do they want to do that?
Then the Daleks are just really cross. I think they have
It's such an English answer. They're a little bit miffed.
They've got a massive inferiority complex and they cover it up with a superiority complex. So they just, if you were a little squiddy thing trapped inside a tin pepper pot, I think you'd be quite cross.
Yeah, but how about...
And they think that they've replaced, because they're so cross, they've decided they're better than everyone else. So everyone else has to do as they say. It's a bit like a 2 and a 3-year-old, actually. You must do what I say, mummy, daddy, stop talking, all that kind of thing.
And following that line, it is that, so why do you have to do as they say? Because they make you. That's the thing.
You've got to kill you.
They've got these guns, you see.
Well, the history is they were created as a means for Davros to control the universe. So they were made to be cross and destructive.
He saw the positive elements of people.
Yeah, but that's the fantasy.
As a weakness, so he took those out, genetically removed
That's the
them.
fantasy, that's the thing. But what makes them frightening is the question.
Is it?
And I think I know what it is. I think what's frightening is the visual thing. It's something to do with the fact that we weren't long out of a war. The Second World War. Yeah, the sink plunger and all that. Have you seen those German sink plungers coming over? I think it's tanks were the most terrifying thing in the First and Second World War. And suddenly someone invented a tank for one person. And to have those massive tanks coming down over Westminster Bridge towards the House of Parliament is very frightening. I think deep down, the adults who watched it from the beginning as well were in tune with that fear.
Yes.
And that fear is why I think we still find these pepper pots frightening.
And I also think that, because some people laugh at them, you'll be surprised to hear, because they're a beautiful amalgamation of a tank and sort of kitchen utensils and radiators and things. And it's certainly a very British thing for us to laugh at villains like, Hitler, short chap, moustache, ridiculous, and the British made out that Napoleon was a lot shorter than he actually was in order to mock him more. And it's that beautiful synthesis of the horrific and completely ludicrous. The only other thing I'd say, just sort of promoting my side of it, which is that
who's got that for a ringtone?
Wow, that's another science fiction thing.
Well, shortly after doing the first Dalek episodes, we did a Doctor Who prom at the Albert Hall in London. And one of the things they had was while the Doctor Who theme was being played, right in the centre of the arena, a Dalek was going round where all the kids were sitting on the floor. And I said to them, shall I do a bit of improvising? They said, this is a concert. You can't make noise while the music's on. I said, oh, sorry. First performance, the Dalek started going around, and after it went round for a while, just looking, its head moving around, the kids started to go up to it and kind of hug it. and eventually, the poor guy inside, he couldn't move it because they were all holding on to it. So the second performance, they said to me, why don't you say something? So I waited until they were all round it, loving it, and then I shouted, exterminate, and they all ran for the hill. So I'd say the voice has something to do with it as well. It's a bit like going to your fridge, and then it threatens to kill you. You know what I mean? It's something that kind of looks odd.
Depends on what's in the
My fridge?
I have a little story I'll share with you. If you've worked with Daleks, or certainly when we were doing it, it was quite hard for the Doctor because the bottom of the Dalek had 4 casters on it, not dissimilar to those you have on your armchair at home. And there's a man sitting inside on a little plank, and it propels itself by him walking with his legs sitting down. Now, if on the floor someone had dropped a peanut shell, and that caster hits the peanut shell, it'll topple over. So one is used to A, running away very slowly with the Dalek is chasing you, because you could be a mile away before they've gone 5 yards. In practice. So that generates a kind of nonchalance towards a Dalek as an actor. However, one night after finishing recording, I got up to the bar upstairs at the BBC and returning to my dressing room, I was walking across the empty studio, which was lit only by emergency lights, so it was very dark, and in the middle of an empty floor was one Dalek just sitting there. And as I walked past, the eye stalk followed me. And for a moment, I experienced the fear that every child has ever experienced. I was alone in a very dark place, and suddenly, for a millisecond, it was real. What had happened was that the operator had gone inside with a can of oil, because it was squeaking all day, and he was moving it and oiling it. But it worked, so if a hardened old pro like me can still be frightened by the bloody thing, they must have got something right.
Yes, I was once doing a signing like this, and a queue of children, and I suddenly saw this little girl, terrified, I mean real terror, fearful terror, and it was horrible to watch. I never want to see a child as scared as that before again. And I looked round, and a Dalek had come out behind me. And so I just stood up and said to her, don't worry, I'm the Doctor, I'll look after you. And she believed me, thank God, and her fear went. But I've never forgotten the fear of that little girl for that, that thing, that Dalek thing that you kind of are inside.
Nicholas, when you're saying exterminate and doing Dalek voices, do you feel very evil when you're saying it?
Yes. But it's acting is acting, and when you're, I'm lucky enough when I do the Dalek voices, as you probably know, I'm on set because as I say, it's my voice that makes the lights flash on the Dalek, the pulse from the sound. So yeah, you have to play the part as much as all the other actors.
Is it not the word itself? If it was something exfoliate,
that's true.
Would it have the same?
No, I think you're right.
Sylvester, you had to do your own regeneration without Colin's assistance.
Yeah, some actor didn't turn up. I had to get another booking somewhere.
And you had to wear a curly blonde wig.
Yeah.
And Colin's coat.
Yeah.
Colin, do you think he got the essence of you?
Well, I looked at Groucho Marx and the blonde wig. I think so.
I have to say that, that these pretenders here think they're the Doctor. Now, there was no regeneration as far as I'm concerned. I did not regenerate. Therefore, I am still the Doctor. These are all imposters.
No. I'm the one actor who played 2 doctors. So I regenerated from me into me, and then and then handed it on to Paul because he needed the work.
But he wasn't man enough to wear the coat, certainly.
Well, no, they put me in the coat. They lost me for 3 days.
They put you into the part and they lost you for 3 days as well.
Lost me forever, really.
Final question?
Someone else? Okay. Colin, you also have the distinction of being the only actor to have ever been in the situation of needing to execute the Doctor.
This is true. I was playing a character called Maxil in Arc of Infinity, and my job was to execute Peter Davison. It's a good way of getting a job, isn't it? As a result of playing that part, I got on rather well with John Nathan Turner. We shared some humorous times together, and he thought of me to play the part, which was very nice. So I'm the only actor who was in the series before playing the Doctor. In fact, they used to. It was decreed that they would only recruit the Doctor from someone who hadn't been in the show before. So break that mold, which is quite nice.
All right, well, let's wrap it up at that point. So Colin, Sylvester, Paul and Nicholas, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Stephen Davis will be joining us. He gets in about 5:30 tonight, so he's in Aussie at the moment with his family. So he'll be here tomorrow. And, thank you for coming out.
Right.